Welcome to Ghoul Talk.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris A. and welcome to Ghoul Talk. Now up top, I'm going to do a quick little realignment of what Ghoul Talk is. So what I want Ghoul Talk to be is I want it to be where we ask and answer a question imperfectly. And the reason I say imperfectly is, first of all, I'm not an expert. Second of all, I don't mean these videos to be comprehensive, although I am going to look at pretty complex topics. Really, the purpose of these videos is to kind of act as a jumping off point to answer some aspects of the question while still leaving the conversation open. So today the question I want to ask is, why does no one want to work? So you're probably aware in the United States there is currently a labor shortage, and a lot of businesses are blaming this on the fact that nobody wants to work, partially because they may be receiving unemployment benefits from their state. So the first thing we want to look at is, does anyone want to work? In a lot of these situations, the employers in question are struggling to fill lower level positions, positions that are generally filled by working class people. And generally speaking, working class people don't work because they want to, but rather because they need to. In the United States, we live in a society where you have to work, you have to sell your labor in order to afford food, medicine, healthcare, shelter, all the necessities to literally survive. You need to work, you need to sell your labor. So first off, it's kind of silly to say no one wants to work. The way we should be reframing it is no one needs to work. Now, why does no one need to work? Well, if you had two options, and the first option was I could pay you $12 for you to wash all my dishes, or I could pay you $20 for you to not die, which are you going to pick? You're going to pick the more money for the less work. And that's just the reality of the labor market. If the state is able to offer workers more money than the businesses, that's not a failure of the state by providing people with the means to survive. That's a failure of the businesses who fail to do that. So what we're really seeing, rather than a labor shortage, is a huge decentralized labor movement. And of course, this all started back in March of last year when so many businesses had to lay people off. And many of the people that got laid off were essential workers, and we saw, that expression become very fashionable to describe people who work in food service, people who work in medicine, anything that's front facing, anything that we can't eliminate in the interest of a quarantine. Now, with a lot of these service industry jobs, a lot of people got laid off, but because the businesses wanted to stay profitable, they continued operating with these smaller staffs. And in many cases, those smaller staffs had to work in unsafe conditions. If you have fewer people, those people are going to be more exposed to the public. And of course, in a pandemic, exposure to the public is a risk factor. So just put yourself in the shoes of someone who, before the pandemic, was making less than $15 an hour, maybe working 30 to 40 hours a week. As we know, that's not really enough anywhere in the United States to survive. So if you put yourself in the shoes of that person, and that person gets laid off, or perhaps worse, they don't get laid off, but all their coworkers do, and they get overworked over the course of the pandemic, how sympathetic do you feel towards these businesses that can't hire back people that they let go originally, and they're trying to hire back people at the same poverty wages that they were offering before the pandemic? Probably not super motivated to do it. Of course, in the middle of this pandemic, we also had a minimum wage debate. Earlier this year, There was a serious legislative push to increase the federal minimum wage to $15. Of course, that's kind of stalled, hasn't really moved anywhere. Of course, about 2/3 of people in the US support this minimum wage increase, and there are two main counter arguments. And the first is, if you're only making minimum wage, you need to find a better job. So that's kind of what's happening with the labor shortage, is that people are refusing to take minimum wage jobs because they know they can't survive on those. And the other counter argument is that if minimum wage goes up, prices of goods and services will go up. Of course, we've been seeing prices of goods and services go up steadily for the past several decades, while wages have more or less stagnated. So if prices are going to go up anyway, maybe we bring the wages up as well, so that people can afford food and healthcare and shelter and the things that humans need to survive. And of course, that brings us up to the present with this labor shortage. And what we're seeing is the closest thing to a general strike that certainly I've seen in my lifetime, probably a lot of you have seen in your lifetimes as well. So since we're basically experiencing a general strike already, why not keep it going? If you can afford to not work, consider not working. And certainly don't go back to work for exploitative employers who are paying poverty wages, who are making you work in unsafe conditions. Because the reality is, if businesses are unable to hire back to full capacity with the poverty wages they're currently offering, they're going to have to raise those wages. They're going to have to improve job conditions. They're going to have to make things more safe for the employees. They're going to have to reduce hours so that people can actually live their life outside of just selling labor 40 hours a week to survive. So if you can afford to remain on strike, you should do it. And you should certainly not go back to work for someone who exploits your labor. Because at the end of the day, the reality is, if a business's only way to generate profit or even stay afloat is to underpay and overwork its employees, that business has already failed. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Ghoul Talk. If you have any questions, any feedback, anything to add, or if you have any disagreements, let me know in the comments down below. Definitely like getting comments, especially when they kind of push back, so we can continue this conversation. Again, Ghoul Talk is not meant to be me telling you how things are. It's really just, let's open up this conversation and let's encourage a dialogue. If you could also subscribe if you haven't already, that would be great. Like the video, you know how YouTube works. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to me on Patreon, share it around, Discord, Reddit, Facebook, you know the deal. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Percent.